Dave here with Half Dozen Customs. We're back out on this Fender after lunch. And I just want to see if we can maybe plenish out these rolls in these corners where all this damage was. You know, I hammered everything out by hand, and you know, I think we're at about 90%. Let's see if I can run it through the plenishing hammer and maybe step it up a notch. I don't know if we're going to be able to do this because the base of, I think that the base of this machine is in my way. I can roll it one way and go in and out, but I can't roll it back the other way. So I'm just going to give it a go and see how it works, and if it's in my way, then we'll just stop before I make matters worse. Get over here. Okay, it worked. It worked beautifully. Now I still feel a couple of areas, but you know, I think we took that 90% up to, you know, maybe 95%. I feel my grinding marks more than anything. This side came out awesome. Maybe I should work this side just a little bit more. Okay, that worked. It worked out awesome. I didn't have the pressure up super high on either thing. Let me unplug this thing, it makes noise. Oy. So there's this adjustment up here which basically tells it how hard to hit, and then you got this adjustment down here which adjusts your lower die of it. Basically, you know, it's how hard it'll hit, how tight it'll hit. And from what I've learned, it's a newer machine in the it's a little older than the English wheel, but it's still a fairly new machine. I don't even think I've had it a year. And from what I've learned so far with it is if you don't use super hard pressure, it plenishes. If you go too hard, it'll stretch. So you can smooth out with it if you're not going crazy with the thing. Or you can stretch it out, and you can do stuff like motorcycle gas tanks and motorcycle fenders, or you know, some people, which I would really like to try and do, the little air scoop things that go over like suicide steering. They make these little teardrop things or these little bubble domes. I have played with being able to make domes and stuff like that, and I've made them. So I just haven't made anything with a purpose yet. So, but using it to kind of plenish out these areas, you know, those were pretty beat up when I very first stripped the Bondo off of it. Now, you know, I hammered and dollied quite a bit by hand, and I got it, you know, I would say when I stripped the Bondo off, it was probably 60% I brought it from 60% to 90% by hammering and doweling. And like I said, I think I brought it up to, you know, maybe 95, 96, 97% by running it through the planishing hammer. So I'm super happy with that. I think that's awesome. So, you know, just it's another tool that I'm learning to use. You know, I've been in this industry for, you know, 25 years or something like that, and you know, worked in shops that had tools like this, but was never on that tool, never taught to use it, never, you know, it was always the people who had the experience that were on those tools. So you know, I think what I've learned so far with them is awesome. I'm happy with it. I think you know, I think I'm moving in the right direction with them, and I can't wait to, you know, see what I'm able to do with them, you know, a couple years from now. So I wish I could have used it up here where we did this patch. I mean, this patch is really close, but I think I could have got, you know, it a little bit closer with using that. But I'm afraid with, you know, it being MIG welded, that will crack our welds. So I'm just gonna leave that one alone, not push it. I think it's close enough. You know, if it was TIG welded, for sure, 100% I'd run it through that thing. So, but yeah, I think we're good now. It is super close. I think with a little DA in, I think, and you'll see that once I get the DA on it. I'm not gonna worry about it right now because we got some more stripping to do. I got another patch to do. We got some sandblasting to do. But you know, as time goes on and you get to see this once it's all like 80'd out and we're getting ready for body work, you know, you'll see that it's pretty darn close. So I'm super happy with it. You know, I went in and, you know, ate lunch and took a break and was just kind of brainstorming and kind of really stoked how this side turned out so well with off camera, of course, of me putting it through the English wheel and just tightening that whole area up with the English wheel. Like, I was super stoked about that. I thought that was super cool, and I just kept thinking about it and thinking about it. And I started thinking, like, man, I wonder if I could tighten up these corners here by using the planishing hammer. So I did enough thinking about it. I came in here and pulled the trigger and, well, pulled the foot pedal, and we got it done. So super awesome. And we're gonna do some grinding and some cleaning, and then we got this patch up here to do. So let's get to it. I'll be right back. Okay. Dave here with Half Dozen Customs. We're back on this Fender again. I just left you guys a little bit ago. I plenished out those corners. Those came out awesome. Super happy with it. And then off camera, I grinded up all the, you know, 1/4 inch of Bondo and primer and paint and everything out of all the way around. Now it's ready for sandblasting. I just wanted to try and get as much Bondo and paint and primer off of it as I could before I sandblast. It just makes sandblasting a lot easier. So I did that off camera. You know, nothing too exciting, but, you know, making a mess. But before I call it a night, it's getting late here. I want to cut this out, see if we can get a new piece made and put in, at least tacked in, if not welded all the way in, but we'll see how far we get. Let's get it cut out first. Okay. Got her marked out. You guys are still here. I think we're in. I think that'll work. Let me get some magnets and see if we can get this thing to stay in place. Hey. Must have been a little bondo and some pinholes there. First little weld I tried to stick to it. It boogered up instead of putting a nice weld. So, but we have a nice piece of metal in there. Much better than this. So, and if you can, you know, I know I've showed you guys it, you know, it's somebody welded on it, it's bondoed. Look at that booger weld on the back. I mean, that's pretty horrendous. And that's, you know, that's the reason that I cut it out and just welded a new piece in. I'm sure I could have sandblasted it up and grinded this down a little bit. Probably grinded down a little bit on the back, and I'm sure we would have been okay. But why even waste the time? It would have took me longer to do that than it would have to do what I just did. So cleaned up earlier and put all my hammers away. So, snap a picture real quick. Last patch. Did find when I was grinding it down, I forget where it's at, but I found a little rust hole that I'm gonna have to weld up, but I'm gonna wait till I'm done sandblasting because I'm sure it's gonna get bigger. Lights. Okay, so that's it, guys. Not too bad. Took me 30 minutes to cut that out, cut a new piece, weld it in. So there it is. Ta-da! Yesterday we left off with replacing that top patch that needed to be done on the fender after cleaning up the rest of the paint and Bondo that was around the back side of the edge that bolts to the bed. Today I put everything together. Everything bolted up fine, but the driver's side, everything was centered. Everything's kind of slotted so that it can move around, and I had everything centered, so you had adjustment right to left. When I bolted this side up, it was all the way to one side. I could not get nothing to center. Something wasn't right. But it all bolted up and it all looked good. Now, I don't know if this was something that was like this when I took it apart. I didn't take any measurements before I took anything apart. I just took it apart. But when I went to put this side together, and everything bolted up just fine. It's just there was no center to it. So I started taking some measurements. And the first thing that I noticed is that, like, you know, your step side and this filler panel here was sticking out of the edge of the bed about 1.5 inches farther than the other side. That's a big difference. So we started going through and just taking measurements. Like, you know, you can see so that was the measurement from this corner to where the fender was mounted up. You know, I got a measurement up here. This is the measurement from the corner of this to the top corner of the fender. You can see where I marked it here. So we started taking measurements there. You know, took a measurement from this top crease here down to the top of the fender. So we started just taking measurements, a lot of measurements, measuring, remeasuring, and everything was off from side to side. So one of the biggest things that we noticed was this. So you see the fenders are lined up. They look pretty good. The rolls, everything seems like it's lined up pretty decent. And then you come over to this side, and it is way off. You look at the inside, you see how you can see the one fender sticking out. This side you can't. You know, you go to this side, look at how much that fender's sticking out. So I don't know if these are two different fenders. You know, it could be one fender could be off of a later model. I don't know, but yeah, these fenders are totally different widths. So yeah, so that's kind of the dilemma where I'm at right now. One fender is about 2 inches longer than the other fender. We even measured the top from just a guesstimate from roll to roll, and they're roughly like they're like 1.25 inches different. Like it's 1.25 inches. One fender's 1.25 inches longer than the other fender, and then down at the bottom, it's about 2 inches, 2.5 inches longer on the bottom from one fender to the other. So that's the pickle that we're in at the moment. You know, there's a good chance that that's how it was when it came in here, and I just, you know, I didn't notice. You know, I mean, the truck was put together. It was, you know, somewhat painted. Like, You know, I didn't take any measurements prior to, you know, getting started on it. I guess I should have. I guess that's a mistake on my end. But now, you know, stay tuned with us and see how we get this fixed, because we're going to make a match. So stay tuned. Thanks for joining us. Okay, so what I'm going to start with is, hopefully I don't have to cut this whole patch off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this lower section out with this lip and see if we can pull the fender in. Earlier when it was on the truck, I pulled the fender in and it kinked right here. So there's obviously something going on right here. I don't know if it was, I just don't know. I don't think that this is right. I think when, you know, I had this thing bolted on the truck when I made this piece, when I cut the old piece out, I mean, it did move, but that old piece was so damaged, I just thought that it was under pressure. It was all crushed in. This whole lip was bent. You know, I didn't think anything of it that, you know, that it would have been that far off. I mean, you know, an inch and a half, 2.5 inches being off just from this little piece right here. But that's where I'm gonna start. I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna cut this lower section out, and then we're gonna see if we can pull the fender in where it needs to go. So, you know, it sucks to go backwards a step, but gotta do what you gotta do. We gotta make this right. So we gotta make it right. I'm gonna cut this from the insides because I can still see my weld. I want to get rid of the weld. I don't want to leave the weld behind. So yeah, let's get to cutting. So, what I'm gonna do, I had this on, oh, it's garbage time. I had this on the table before I decided to make that cut, and I clamped these edges up so that they matched. And then, I can already see there's already a huge difference. Different fenders or something, because that is just way off. So that is much better. Before it was like this. So now I'm able to pull these bottoms in. I'll be able to clamp it. What I don't like is this here, which is part of what's making me think that they might be two different fenders. So I think the problem of it being too wide has been solved. This piece that I put in here, it was just, I put it into it being stretched out. Now that it's pulled in, I can remake this piece. We can put it back in, and it should hold the fender in where it needs to be. Now the only other thing would be the height difference. What do we do about that? Okay, so we put this side back together, and I'm okay with it. I've got my biggest concern before was this front. This blue piece and this step was sticking out between 1.5 inches and 2 inches farther forward than the other side. That was my biggest concern. As soon as I put everything together and I looked across, I could see that it was sticking way out. So now I have everything measured, and I'm within a 1/16 to an 1/8. I'm okay with that. I'm not gonna push it any farther than that. I'm okay with that. I mean, we went from an 1.5 inch difference to, an 1/8 or under. So I do have to remake this piece. You can see what I cut out, and it's definitely. I mean, could I weld that back in there? Sure, but I'm just gonna make a new piece. I mean, that's over an 1/8 inch of a gap there. So I'm just gonna make a new piece and we'll weld it in. The only other thing that is still off is this thing side to side. I have it lined up here where you could see that like this was painted while it was mounted to the truck, so there's a line back there. I have that line lined up, and we're off here a little bit, so I can just loosen it up and slide it forward and close this up where it needs to be. It's no big deal. It's just loosen 2 bolts and it slides forward. The whole reason that I'm going through all this is because I'm getting ready to remake those pieces. I'm going to remake this blue piece and that blue piece in the back. We're going to make them brand new like I did the other side. It's really not a whole lot wrong with these. The other side had stuff wrong with it. That's why I remade them. But I'm not going to remake one side, not the other. I would much rather remake both sides. Plus the way that they have it mounted up. I don't know if it's from the factory or if somebody made these panels once before, but the way that they have them bolted up, like the bolts that go up in the bottom, like their washers they had on there were like this big. When I remade my side, it's just got normal washer in there. It's nothing extraordinary. So I get to remake that, and that'll all be, we'll be good to go there. So I'm much happier with the way that this is sitting now. And it was pretty much this piece. When I cut that old rotted piece out, this Fender did, it did this. I didn't catch it. I didn't even think of it. I remember, I'm sure if I go back and look at the video, I know it popped when I cut it, because it was all, they like cave-in painted over there, and I just figured it was under tension, and it is what it is. We got to figure it out. So I just took a hair off of that, just give me a little bit closer of a fit, or not as close of a fit, give me a little gap. Should always wear your safety glasses, safety first. As my buddy would say that owns this Jeep, he had his safety squints on. One there. So I didn't take enough off of here. Happier with that. So I did, last night after I got this cut out, I kind of got everything bolted in where I wanted it. I did have to hammer and dolly this roll here a little bit. I had to roll it a little bit more because when I squeezed the fender together, it kind of lifted this area out a little bit. So I did have to hammer and dolly that. That was really the only other thing that I had to do besides make a new piece. And it wasn't bad. It didn't take me much but a few minutes. So. That whole time my safety glasses were on my head. Why didn't you guys tell me? Welded back in. I only had one spot cause me a problem, and it was just right in there. And I think it was just, you know, two shrunk areas, or not shrunk. I'm sorry, stretched out areas. Two stretched out areas. You know, when you stretch metal out, it gets a little thinner, and you know, I'm welding with my welder hot, so I get good penetration to the back side. You know, if I would have turned down my welder a little bit, I probably wouldn't have had any problems. But she's all welded up. Let's get my safety specs this time. Let's get her grinded up. Okay. I think we're almost back to where we were yesterday morning. The next time that I have this fender off, I gotta weld these bottom lips, and then I'll do a little grinding on the inside. We'll do a little hammering and dollying very carefully so we don't crack nothing. and then I'll do just my final grind and clean up on it and sanding and whatnot, and she'll be ready to go. So I think we're good now, at least hopefully. Okay. It's lunchtime. My tummy's telling me it's hungry. See you guys later. I'm out.